subcourse DI0450 Edition 9, performing as a chief radio announcer, establishing and maintaining broadcasting and operation and procedures, public affairs, Army Institute Professional Development, Army Course Correspondence Course Program. 5 credits, U.S. Army Public Affairs Proponent Center, Fort George J. Meade, Maryland. Section Lesson 1, performing as a chief radio announcer, introduction, be knowledgeable, radio format critiques, and announcing broadcast copy, pre-production process, managing traffic continuity, review program materials, record library, audience survey, type of surveys, radio remotes, managing AFRTS radio package, stations, maintenance, supplies, the bottom line, and Lesson 2, Introduction, Standing Operating Procedure Draft. Lesson 2 is Establishing and Maintain Broadcasting Standard Operation Procedure. Performing as a chief radio announcer. The chief radio announcer is very important to military radio operation. Once you've reached this level in your military broadcasting career, you can find the responsibility suddenly becomes more than just a word. A chief radio announcer, you will be responsible for implementing station policies, ensuring that they are carried out by your subordinates. A chief radio announcer must be an expert at his radio outlet. Lesson will provide a step-by-step look at the duties of the responsibility of the chief radio announcer. Being knowledgeable, the chief radio announcer must have thorough knowledge of all the aspects of the radio operation. Hard to supervise personnel when you don't understand the tasks that they perform. As a chief announcer, you must know that each performance measure takes to perform a task that your announcer must complete. You must know how to perform a music program, operate radio control room equipment, announce broadcast copy, perform a broadcast interview, produce radio spots and features, write broadcast copy, do performance counseling. This is by no means the entire list. The list could go on and on and on. The bottom line is simple to know your radio operation. The station's program director is normally responsible for the station manager with establishing program formats for all local shows. These chief radio announcers, in most cases, they will have input when formats are devised. Although input into the creative process is important, you are responsible for ensuring the local program formats are followed by staff and announcers. Through this, you should know all of the formats. Understand that the objective of the local music program format is to deliver with a maximum command information with a minimum annoyance to the public music listening audience. Doing this, managing the spot to music ratio and the place of those, the placement of those who spot within the music program. The format should hold the listener attention with a music balance. The format will be shaped overall audience of the sound program. Consult the latest local audience survey to determine the listening habits of the music preference. Station programmers will already have set with the times lifestyle of music for the local show. So you must determine the amount of balance the chart music versus oldies. Therefore, placement within the show's on-air window, number of spots used in the show, how often to air those announcements. The survey results can show audience's preference for the chart and oldie songs and can indicate spots, announcements, and saturation. Many stations prepare a music wheel, but Hot Clock Figure 1-1 representing an hour of local showtime as a guide for local disc jockeys. A circle corresponds the face of the clock is used to show that the DJ required or suggested show the element to the air. The approximate time they aired it, and according to the local standing operation procedure, can refer to the music selection and spots and jingles and propellants. Music selection play should not be left entirely to the show with an announcer. Music types of administrative are divided into the classification, simple management of the format. Usual classification is a hot chart songs, low chart songs, and oldies. Songs can be further classified with the tempo, gender of the artist as desired to prevent overplaying songs of a particular classification system, or the rotating of the music can be divided. File cards can be prepared for the top of the chart songs that can be rotated when one of the songs is played. The desired song type is listed with a classification on the music wheel and the position determined with the best fit with the format objectives. Shows info, show nets, station break nets, and station break spot sets, PR 20 and spot sets, hours of music machine. chart, 1D song chart, oldies, ramp, stage chart, 1D previous songs, ramp, swag, hues, oldie, sharp chart, oldie. Shows the hot clock. You may determine the need to vary female-male group balance of your announcer playlist, requiring a loose mix of the three will prevent all male and all female sound dominating your local shows. The wave effective is widely recognized with effective weighted managed with a strong tempo to keep listener with an intro of the wave means for the program on an up tempo with a song with the artist slowing with the tempo down through the middle of the first half, starting with the second half, or with an up tempo kicker slowing the tempo through the middle of the second half, ending with another up tempo song. Determine how many spots when to use and how often the air over the during the show, but it depends on the shape of the spot. The music has been established with no hard fast for the formula for this, over the main idea with the balance of the not too heavy on the spot slide. Local survey will provide feedback indicating how well the balance of the format is. A good start might be a ratio of 1 minute of spots to 6 minutes of the music. Ratio should be adjusted to fit the local audience need of the desire. Most stations cluster the spots together rather than sandwiching them singly between songs. The technique is preferred because of the give the sound with the more music being played. Most stations' music wheels run on a spot cluster set with the 2 or 3 spots for 3 times an hour. Spot clusters can be made with a combination produced with the carded spots and reader live announcements depending on the command with the information emphasis for the traffic continuity over the command. Information section can assist you in making the determination. Music program format should also indicate how often when supported material is aired. This includes the jingles, propellants over the news and sports feature for the comedy segments and weather, etc. Given the disc jockey guidance over the how often and when to use the produced jingle over the music propellants over with the guidance for these program A for the determinant, 2 for the crutch over the announcer. Jingle should not be overplayed. It's up to you to decide how much it is too much, and the key balance over the program age with often show elements. Establish guidelines concerning the announcer self-identification over the ID formal and informal again balance over this is the key of the consideration. It's important to your audience that you establish a pattern of when it can accept with a certain show elements of the different time periods will have the different emphasis because of the nature of the audience. Changes with the day part. Information, news times, weather, temperature of the road conditions, school closings is important to most of the morning drive time audiences. Features may appeal to the mid-morning local audience after drive time. The audience may prefer the information segments during the local music show, sports, weather, time, etc. Consult your latest local audience survey to make this determination. If you're an affiliate station, consider the network music program format. If you're given the option to create your station format, don't radically from the network sound. Your audience expects a certain amount of continuity. Critiques. The best way to ensure the announcers are in compliance with local formats to critique their programs. There are a couple of ways to do this. Monitor live broadcasts several times a week. Spend the time listening to the portion of the live broadcast. Do not monitor the broadcast by sitting in the studio with your clipboard. This will make the announcer nervous and tip him off that no one now would be a good time to follow the format. Audition air check tapes. Most radio outlets have a 24-hour logger machine, sometimes called an Aipd tape. The 24-hour logger is used every day for the year with recording each day's program. This gives you the luxury of selecting tapes at random criteria. In most cases, you should listen to the tape so that you can establish the key points you want to bring out to the critique. Note any trends, too many of the time hacks, too much of the not enough talking or weather, etc. This will give you the basis for the future critiques and know the improvement to be objective to try to help the announcer to develop their own style within the boundaries of the station format. When listening to a local program, there are areas you need to pay particular attention for the announcer compliance with. Does the announcer music rotation program log, locally broadcasting and establish standard operating procedure, soldiers manual, host name, sensitive policy. Does the announcer select the music correspond with the tempo style of the local format, gather inspect for the air quality and spots, stop records, cartridges, other air products needed for the show, rehearse spots, promos, any other material that reads live, update weather forecast, current temperature with the condition with the spot brief, the other date with the material required by the local format, form music show elements according with the log of the local format, overuse single propellants with the other production aids, communicate one-on-one with the audience, make comments that are profane, vulgar, offensive to the audience, having dead air during show, step on vocals on songs, step on the vocals of a song, use proper announcement techniques, correct mistakes without calling attention to them, avoid unintentional live microphone, make current and complete log entries, note deficiency with equipment program material for the next operator. While critiquing staff of the announcer is smart with the conduct of the performance counseling with a document with a session, you should point out whether it's strong in the area with the as well with the deficiency. Once you point out the deficiency, always show the announcer with the correct way of performing the task, with informing the person with the express with the reiterate the task into the regular training program. Informally review progress daily. Help with your announcers by providing constructive criticism in the effort to improve the weak areas. Everything is thereafter. Conduct performance counseling reviews of his progress and strength of the weaknesses. Remember, the tactical constructive criticism is more effective than helpful to simply finding fault. If he fails to show that improve, the more superior is aware of the situation. You wanted them to know that you are working on correcting problem, continued lack progress, broadcast bar, indicating attitude, learning problem, appropriate action should be taken to correct the deficiencies. Announce broadcast copy. Now with announcing broadcast copy has helped with the reach of the position of the chief of the radio and announcer. Always prepared to share with announcers with staff and announcers. Introduce them to the tricks of the broadcasting trade in case you have forgotten a few of the tricks that they have with the future of the announcement broadcast copy. Before you go on the air, read the copy aloud with identify with the difficulty per announcer with check with the words in the dictionary with the Y or service fanatical guide or station pronunciation guides. As you read, try to determine the meaning with the intent with each of the story possible to convey meaning and intent within the story of if you do not understand it yourself. Mark the copy with a pause of the breathing. All those words should be emphasized with extremely helpful to phonetically rewrite difficult to pronounce word with the phonetic version of the words will also give the confidence with pronouncing it with a check with the grammar to printed copy. Just because it came over the major wire server doesn't mean it's perfect. Articulate properly to pronounce all of the syllables in each word. For example, when you pronounce the word breezes, include the S sound. Also, don't make sound substitutions such as dat instead of that. Use careful inflection, properly changing the pitch of the tone of the delivery. Too much of the preferred pattern inflection can create a sing-song effect with which not effect with the inflection result of the monotone with the delivery affection. Inflection should vary the pitch naturally. Phrase of the word groups words with the unit group instead of the emphasizing each word with the keep it in individual words should be emphasized. For example, instead of saying Secretary of the State with Jim Shell, Smith flew to the Middle East today to talk with the Israel officials about the new peace proposal in such a way that each word is given an equal importance group of the sentence within the phrase. Secretary of the State Jim Smith flew into the Middle East today with a talk with the Israel officials about the new peace proposals. Speaking in phrases and placing emphasis within keywords within each phrase better communicates the meaning of the intent of the story. Use correct delivery speed rate with the will, usually depending on the subject matter. Generally speak with the sports copy will and deliver the faster rate of the news. Emotional stories such as the death of a child will be delivered as much with a slower rate, a rate of 14 to 16 lines per minute, generally except for the average of the broadcast copy. Or normal rate would be in which the announcer is most comfortable with providing clarity. The voice quality are not sacrificed for speed. A smile, chuckle during the delivery of the emotional and sad of the story, often for the unprofessional of the delivery involved with a feature program will probably be more upbeat than other types of the radio programs would still depend on the subject matter. Feature of a natural disaster, a tragic event with a history of it would certainly not be upbeat. Plus, between the stories all you with transition. This alerts the listener of the fact that one story has ended and another is about to begin, also posting them with the story of the emphasis for the particular segment. Try your best to avoid stumbling. Even the best announcers stumble on occasion. Stumbling often occurs for the announcer with the station of the rehearsal of his copy hasn't sufficiently rehearsed his copy to give the unfamiliar with difficult words should be checked within the dictionary of the service pronunciation guide or station pronunciation guide. Announcing the copy of authority this time on the property preparation rehearsal. If you know the copy of the meaning of the story with the authorization in your delivery, authoritative in your delivery, you'll better communicate with the meaning and intent of the story to your listener. Make sure that complete the broadcast on time. If you're present with the cast of the radio, finish early with it. If you're probably from some dead air with the finish late with it, there's a good chance that you'll be cut off with the right at the time you were supposed to be at the end of your cast. Prepared for the disaster such of the car not play. Always have an LB copy of the story that's on one card so that you don't leave listeners hanging in the case of the insert that does not air. Bring in enough emergency fill copy with the cover for the scheduled time to on air. Pre-production process. Chief of the radio announcer should review the existing standard operation procedure when the traffic continue with the department to make sure the current with the standard operation procedure contain all of the current list of the command recognized station clients. Station clients organization recognized by the local command who wish to have their messages delivered to the audience. Some clients would include Red Cross Community Service, etc. They must become familiar with the background information concerning that each of the client established points of the contact include phone numbers for each organization. You should regularly communicate each of the organization with the client input. You verily emphasize with the calendar should be created to help schedule, produce, and air command information. CI spots at appropriate times before personal responsible processing, traffic and continuity, audience characteristics, and listening, viewing habits, the command, air command information, emphasis areas, authorized clients, and the use of the background files. Managing traffic and continuity. There is no specific set of the rules governing the amount of spots to be aired. If you're determining before making the determination, you need to apply with the 4 basic steps to effective spot programming. Determine command information objectives needed with only the topic is decided upon. Consider the impact of the host country with the sensitivity. Also consider the degree of the application of a single spot with their campaign. Reserve the targeted announcement with address the demographics of the audience within true with the method of the communication AM, FM, radio, TV. Formulate the spot command campaign. Plan ahead for the seasonal spots, winter drive with the AER commands, etc. Program spots. Decide whether you need to use it across the board with the random spot and programming. Determine if the spot will be aired during the morning drive time, with the afternoon drive time, non-prime time, change time, pairing spots for the same subject with avoid using same spot with the same hour with each day with the evaluate spots with the see with the intent with the result of certain spots are more effective during the certain times of the day. Sure spots are being introduced to perform quality control of the checks with completed products approved for the daily program. Log in accordance with the local standard operation procedure. Move outdated spot material from the system. You must ensure that the established receive the labeling, maintaining command information products, raising emergency special announcements are followed. The personnel must be thoroughly briefed. The emergency special announcements usually come from the Red Cross and are verified by the on-duty announcer within accordance with the local policy. Reviewing the program materials. Note, one of the most important responsibilities you will have with the broadcast supervisor with the review material of the broadcast released once for the product area that it can't be retrieved. Local SO standard operation procedures should provide with the basic guidance when it comes to release of the material for broadcast of the following information outline pertains to the both radio and television unless otherwise specified to make sure the product air conforms to security, accuracy, policy, and priorities. SAP. Security measures. Security measure for the Army outline in the Army Regulation 3805. Disclosure classified information definitely violates regulation. Always check with the first one when in doubt. Always comment. Also, comments that are sensitive but not classified should not air. An example of this would be a pilot who proudly announces that it only takes 5 minutes for he or his fellow chopper pilots to get into the air and aft effective of the first one. The comment is not classified but may be helpful to the enemy of the potential enemy. Make sure the information is accurate with the check the spelling with the name of the make sure the ranks of the correct with the unit with the designation are correct with the aim of the battery with the not company with the filtered artillery units etc. With even the story with that are generated relief over the PAO. PAO should be checked for accuracy. Policy. Be familiar with the public affairs policies outlined in the Army Regulation 365, Army Public Relations, Public Information, Army Regulation 360-61, Community Relations, Army Regulation 360-81, Command Information Program. The following regulations will contain the policy consideration reviewing officials needed. No, broadcasting supervisors must be familiar with the content of the regulation. In this case, the need for the quick reference to the Army Regulation 347, the release of information Army file with the records, Army Regulation 340-21, Army Privacy Program, Army Regulation 3680-80, release of information with more than one service involved in an accident incident. Army Regulation 385, the Department of Information Security Program, Department of Defense Directive 512210 with the Armed Forces Information Service while working overseas with the AFRTS outline. You will be familiar with the Department of Directive of the 512020R with the Armed Forces Radio and Television Services. Army Regulation 367, Army Broadcast Services. Priority, as doing with the right with the proper intro of the broadcast material, the good tip does not violate the sensitivities of the listening audience, but there are several things that would prevent the broadcast material being aired with vulgarity, obscenity, gore, perversion, except for the violence of the information that hold with the service of the or its members over the ridicule. Most overseas stations will maintain a local sense of the file, but it is the purpose of giving guidance concerning in the broadcast of the issue consider the controversial of the host country with the government, but they are also set to proceed with the reviewing material of the host country sensitivity. When it's necessary to remove the host country sensitivity from the entertainment material of the Army Force Radio Television Army Force Radio and Television Services outlets are authorized to reproduce dub of the original program to facilitate removal of the privacy. Because of the Privacy Act, broadcast material should not include with certain information without permission of the individual concerned with this, include with the street address, social security number, the telephone numbers, and the information contained with the medical personal files, information pertaining to ongoing disciplinary actions which would clearly be unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Libelous information must be deleted with any material intent of the broadcast. Basically, you must not say anything about persons, groups, organizations, businesses that expose them to hatred or contempt, lower them in esteem of others, cause them to be shunned, injures their business. Examples of the oblivious words are drunk, radical, dishonest, unethical, cheat, criminal unless convicted, and traitor, etc. News analysis commentary. Local produced news analysis commentary and another example of policy violation. And they expressly forbidden for only those analysis of the commentary programs provided by the Army Force Radio Television Series BC may be aired. This material must still be reviewed by the broadcast. Certain comments may be found in Panama but not in Korea because of the host country sensitivity. Again, local senior operation procedures should provide with guidance in this area, but as a new analysis commentary program is aired, it must be aired in entirety with the radio news acculates and the correspondence reports may be exported with the network newscast but must be exported in their entirety. The news source of the news source networks and news sources networks that authorize their the television program to be exported and identified with the Department of Defense Regulation 5120-20R Appendix F. Another technical consideration for the radio to ensure the audio quality and to ensure the role of the listener should be able to understand the intent of the message, listening with the material shift through the consistent audio level to make sure the material is correctly timed and running time for the radio material that covers first and last audio with the issue of the discrepancy with the make for the true of the person responsible for the program is made aware of the IAW local standard operation procedure. The record library. Another critical area of the responsible station record library, the Army Force Radio Television Series record libraries must be maintained with a neat, orderly manner with the card files that are updated with each of the incoming shipments from the Army Force Radio Television Service BC. Army Force Radio Television System card files provide a cross-reference system that allows announcers to look up for the records for the artist and tile. These files are normally the most difficult part of the library to maintain. You will find out that most announcers dread the mission of having to have a full library card from new shipment with the radio chief with the announcers must closely monitor the filing of the cards. Without the cards, it is sometimes impossible to locate a certain selection without physically going through the entire section of the record library. Radio library materials should be separated. The music type of the category radio sleeve shock should be labeled in accordance with the local policy, normally with the record number placed on the sleeve itself. This allows the announcer to locate the number in the card of the file of the find the record, which is numerically sequenced, and the record librarian is also responsible to ensure that the record shocks are maintained in good condition, that all the deficiencies are brought to the chief of the radio announcer's attention whenever possible. The emphasis over the care of the handle of the records. So with the policy for the cleaning of the records using professional accepted method. This will depend on the availability of the cleaning material. The record accountability is responsible. The record accountability is your responsibility. You should establish policy for the removal of the record library. You with the system the sign out card for the server insert of the record space after the removal of the record is determined the card can be removed. Set of the policy concern the removal of the records from the radio selection section. Records should never be allowed to be signed from out of the unofficial purpose of it except for the remote broadcast, which means the criteria set forth in Army Regulation 37 7. The records neither to leave the station. A semi-annual inventory of all radio materials must be conducted. Most radio outlets require the tap chart song with the recorded out of the tape the cartridge to the prevents wear of the tape of the record provides to the format control of the program director of the chief of the radio announcer making sure the chart song with the properly recorded does the tape cue with the used properly and cartridge properly erased prior to the recording. Because if the song is cued properly with the recording is clear, but the tape cartridge is okay. If it is responsible, the chief of the radio announcer, then ensure the music charts to update with local standard operation, proceed with the normally spells out with the how it's done with the outlets, the may often recover the pop soul of the country charts, or the maybe maintain with the charts may should be updated on a weekly basis or whenever the latest charts has arise. Keep up the charts over the keep the audience and keep it abreast of the list of the state side of the musical and entertainment audience survey. When the chief of the radio announcer is reasonable with definitely audience survey, but it doesn't mean that he will not be assisting with their station annual survey. Most often, the chief of the radio announcers for the behaviorally and involved with the survey project with working under the guidance of the section of the NCO. I see with their program director. This is important for you to be familiar with the survey process. No one tells you that you conduct surveys, but they are conducted because they are necessity if you wish to determine the needs of the audience. Every review is a section of the local standard operation procedure that deals with the audience survey. The standard operation procedure does not contain section with the right with a one. Section should include the statement of the frequency with the prevailing local audience sampling with the method of the most effective distribution, disposition, instructions of the survey findings. Normally, you want to survey your audience yearly. Survey purposes defining the purpose of survey by stating the problem reason for the survey, identify the population group of which to select for the people to answer the questions, writing the statement of the objectives and what you can expect from the survey, explain how the survey funds will be used to promote the fact that we're going to conduct the survey that you don't surprise the audience, also complete with the mailing list intended for the population. Audience sample. Conducting an audience survey, critical sample of the carefully selected part of the total audience in such a way that the sample will have the same character for the total audience. To find ways of sampling the audience or random sample of respondents that are identified through a random selection method, stratified random before a sample is chosen. The respondents are broken up into categories: age, sex, grade, the education, etc. A cluster pick up of the desired member of the respondent in the groups. Systematic follow the pattern of the select every 10 with the name of the list of the potential respondent. Quarter U with the personal interview method. Each interview with a given a set with the number of the person with a query with a random sample if the method most often used is recommended. Type of questionnaire. Construct the questionnaire and record the response answer for the over the two types of self-administered, interviewed, administered. Self-administered, the respondent fills out the form himself with all the records answered for the interview with the administrator of the questionnaire. With the main difference of it, they must include the directions for the respondent with the self-administered of the questionnaires. In either case, they may the questionnaire easy with construction questionnaires. Ask yourself who will answer the question, how will the response be recorded, what you really want to find out. Primitive the most of the questionnaires on the need that can be used with the training with the interviews. Provide sample copy to replace the old damage the lost copy of the questionnaire. You'll begin with identifying information, name of the title survey, information above the subject, and then the demographic information about the respondent. The type of surveys. With a few exemptions of the audience, the larger the spread out with a fairly large area. Keep in mind with the three types of surveys should be consider the telephone, personal, and the mail. With the advantage for the disadvantage for each of the type of the mail survey is most often used. If you choose telephone, survey the train the people that will you the conduct the interview, the short list of the questions. People that tend to want to stay on the phone for long periods of time do not use the personal questions. People that are generally suspicious about the use of such question over the phone and strictly the interview is not to be with the base of the asking question to record the answer of the questionnaire. If you choose the personal interview, train the people that have been more persistent during the interview. Also instruct them to follow the question visual aids to recall the instruct the interview to be based on the asking question and record the answer of the questionnaire. If you choose the mail survey with a covered letter with the questionnaire with a covered letter should say the purpose of the survey with the confidential nature of the response with the address of the sponsoring agency or unit. The date of the letter was completed survey number. Type of survey questions. Extracting factual information is much easier than getting the truth of the measure of the opinion with the several choices of the kinds of the question of the finding out much soon one knows about the subject. Open-ended questions of the allow the respondent to answer within his or her own words. Checklist for the multiple choice questions give the respondent the selection possible answers. You should include with the other category where the respondent can indicate choice not given in the list, particularly helpful to pre-testing. Dichotomatis, dividing into parts questions that are yes or no, true or false types that should include the not sure, but do not know, but the sure, but the respondent is not forced or the decision he is really uncertain. Rank items. The respondent given in the list of the ask for the rank 1, 2, 3, etc. This would be useful with the ranking audience preference of the different types of the radio music show in the program. Agree, disagree. Approach ask of the respondent to indicate that he agree with or disagree with his opinion. He and has no opinion with regard to the statement. Opinion scales. These are usually 3 to 5 7-point scale, but they can be used to measure the intensity of the feeling about the subject, how important the source of the news to you. With each source will be rated: 1 very important, 2 somewhat important, 3 so-so, 4 somewhat unimportant, 5 not important. Questions should be short as possible without professional jargon. Technical words that should generate exactly information desirable the terms of what exists on the tabulation. Statistical environment do not overlap. Categories shows like 18, 20, 20, 22, 23, 24, 22 to 24, which are the age group with which you where their if they were 20 years old. Avoid multiple meaning questions, an example of which would be medium best for the news or entertainment. Each question should have limited itself within 1 point. Do not use leading questions such as, would you say that they are in favor of the more radio news with regard? Reword the question something like, are you in favor of the more radio news? If this is not leading, and avoiding using catchwords over the emotional connotation. Draft dodgers, rapist, commie. These words elicit stronger feelings of the influence and how the person will be to respond. If feasible, check with the questions. These questions are asked for the same information. Another question be worded differently with a place of the different parts of the survey. For example, do you listen to the SEM FM? For instance, SEM FM, do you bring out the internal consistency of the response? This is arranging question and logical meaning with the will avoid with confusion, misunderstanding, opening when the question should be easily unanswered with the question with the might, and better with the respond with it should be towards the end. Keep the knowledge out opinion with the question separate with the question of dealing with the same subject together the demand graph the question show that to be played for the end of the because the respondent is more likely to discover himself that he was asked for his knowledge about the subject with the leave of the survey for the end of the survey the respondent to express his personal feeling in the survey subject with the survey itself and always think the respondent for cooperating questionnaire should always be pretested on a group intending with the population. Pretesting allows you the chance to deal with the problems concerning the question with the wording and answer question interview procedures. Talking with a pretest group will also point out the additional possible question probable areas. Terminal samples. However, the terminal samples the word concerned with the two things: accuracy, the reliability, confidence, risk. The samples determine the accompanying with the table of figure 1, 2 with the index with the size with the table population on the desired level of readability, reliability. Most commonly with the error with the accuracy tolerance of the plus or minus 5% with the 95% of the confidence limited. This means with the 95 to 100% of the random surveys will not vary with the true with the population percent with the more than plus with the minus 5%. For example, 50% of the sample says with the watch for the 60 o'clock noon with this mean with the true valuing audience may have as much of the age 55 a little than 45% of the total audience. Figure 1, 2 with the last show with the sample size with the need to achieve the different levels accuracy with 95% confidence. Sample size with the need for the different level of reliability. Populations from 50, 100, 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Level availability 2%, 3%, 4%, and 5%. Sample sizes for audience of 4,000 area with the accuracy tolerance a plus with a minus 5% with a 95% confidence limited when the need random release select 350 people. Let's say you decide to use the mail survey to determine how many watch the 6 o'clock news. You should only send the 350 questionnaires, but you need to ensure that you get at least 350 back. This is a formula to give it the need of the questionnaire that have to be sent with a typical questionnaire 350 over X equals 20 over 100. Typical response to mail survey with a range of 20 and 30% with the figure 350 with a 20% of the total number of the questionnaire that will be sent out with above the X's number of questionnaires needed to be make 350 equal 20%. Give it the 20% of the minimum rate determined with the work the formula multiple 350 by 100. Give it a factor of 35,000. This figure is divided by 20. Give it you 1,750, which equals to better X 10B. Ensure the reverend receive at least 350 questionnaires back for the survey. You need to send out a minimum of 1,750 questionnaires. You have sent out with 1,750 questionnaires, have received 350 response survey. They show that 80% of them respond with the watch at 6 o'clock news. Can safely say that 80% of the total audience watch at 6 o'clock news. No, you cannot. The 80% figure falls within the range called the confidence limits. Figure 1-3 show the percentage spread of the variable different with the percentage obtained with the sample size to give it the 90% confidence. Show the variability of the different sample size obtained with the percentage of sample sizes and 95% confidence levels. Determine the spread of the availability of the intersection sample size with the percentage obtained with the view with the figure with the intersection 350, 80% of the 4.2, subtracted to with the 80% with the give of the 2% of the total audience watch at 6 o'clock noon with the reporting result of the command with the economic confidence same with the 95 to 100. So survey true with the viewing audience of the 6 o'clock news between 75.8 to 84.2%. For this, any other time, other desired information to the commander of the file result of the survey Aipd local standard operation procedure. Radio remote chief radio and announcer from time to time will be called up to set up the broadcasting origination of the remote location. Types of the equipment and rules of the broadcasting differ from the studio operation. Radio remotes can be handled in different ways. This section will present one avenue of the approach. Type of the remote broadcast cover the type of the events of the Army Force Radio Service outlets for the Athens Grief. The primary example of each year of the outlet received the request for the remote broadcast of sports office, education center, office of the NCO, of the Wives Club, of the other base agency, basically anything that would be an interest to the military population worth considering. Station in Athens for broadcasting the remote location covering base sporting events, softball, football, basketball at the post exchange during education days, talking to college registered with prospective students, sometimes even taking local radio programs to locations such as the recreation center or the cafeteria remotes not only help with data crowds that help pass information, but also good public relations for the outlet. First thing first. When you first list things to do, let us suppose you receive the request of sports officer that covers with the base of football team with the backed up with the personal request of the base with the commander that immediately says yes, not unless you've already evaluated the event. Never commit yourself until the receipt of the request. What you look for before you commit with the resources. Will broadcasting even the event meet audience need? Is this a valid request? Do not violate DoD, Army Force, radio, television services regulation. Do you have personnel that are knowledgeable, capable of doing play-by-play coverage that they're available to do for the mission with the type of equipment or do you have it available or the power source available to the remote location? Talk to the station engineer to find out if the broadcast is feasible. What type of facility with the team in the broadcast room and the personal and equipment protected from the elements of the football game that are not normally called for the inclement weather? Do not forget about with the transportation, either the transfer the equipment and the personal with the remote location. Present with the request for the coverage of your evaluation station manager of the note. Never go in the office with the reach over the back up with your decision. Good station manager for the program director will always take a critical look at the request for the remote broadcast. If you want to broadcast the event, then you have the facts in order. Pre-production meeting. Pre-production meeting is wherever pre-production meeting. The pre-production meeting is wherever the whole operation starts coming together. The section below should present traffic continue with the folks that are normally responsible for preparing the station program along assessing, signing spot production, emotional spots to produce the advertise for the game, and they never underestimate the need of the publicity. But half the time periods needs to be blocked out as to when it's going on, what happened, the interview for the review of the first half of the action, the news on the sports, and the update for all the need to be scheduled. The engineering station makes it possible to give the remote signal back to the station. The maintenance personnel with the responsible testing, setting up of the remote equipment, and ensuring the proper power supplies are available to radio operations. Play-by-play announcer of the color of the man statistic and only with the president of the meeting of it together with you and play-by-play of the team devises a format for you for during the game. Intro and outro of the need of the written along with the sharing of the introduction break and closing cues. Sports officer provides instant communication with the sports officer representative who can fill in your on questions and about remote broadcasting area of the game day operation. Public affair representative from the public affair of the office will provide you with another medium for the getting of the word out to the base population. If the engineering traffic continues over the sections provided with the written with staff report of their after the chief of the radio announcer must keep the on an action generated with the remote broadcast that provides you information feature remotes. What about the visiting team of the change of the Armed Force Radio Service with the outlet with the servicing visiting team called the chief of the radio announcer ever the outlet with the ask for the assistant with the gathering information of the team, and normally you'll be able to get the game's on uniform numbers, geographical information, possibly run down with the key players, if technically possibly offered the football broadcast to the outlet Armed Forces Radio Service Athens with the assistant of the personnel of the base Swiss ward were able to transmit the game all over the Mediterranean. This needs to be planned far in advance with the guarantee with availability of phone lines. A big day of the game and the arrival of the equipment is ready. The talent is able to play for the fingers are crossed with the hoping that nothing is going wrong. Remember the broadcaster friend, Mr. Murphy, whatever can go wrong will go wrong when you least expect it. Anticipate problems areas such as all the equipment malfunction, inclement weather. Sure, the station engineer is present at all times during the game. The wrap up, the game is over. The equipment has been returned back to the station. Personnel staff with the relief of the finish of the right with the wrong while the production of the game is still fresh in your mind. Write your after action report. Try to be thorough. Keep it in mind. Your report while you the reference of the further sports broadcast productions. Point out things that went well and the areas which had problems. Your after action report should have been placed in the game file. The file provides you with a good head start on what direction to take during the next football broadcast. Managing an Armed Forces Radio Television Service radio program package. Assigning someone to the radio section responsible to maintain that each radio shipment and receive it and send forward with the job. Often with the responsible to record the librarian, you should ensure that they're missing with the damage or defects with the items and identify with the chief audio announcer of the chief and notify with the Army Force Radio Television Service the BEC with directly notifying also of the recovery of more than 5 days elapsed after the expected arrival date of shipment that first circulated been true with the chief of the radio announcer should notify with the preceding outlet as well with the following over the circuit. The audio materials have been separated with the program type, the RU FM XML with FRP, etc. with the check with the C, with the RP, with the RU, with the 40C. The FMP materials are filed within accordance with the local program schedule with the standard operation procedure to ensure the ongoing material of the process for shipment of the RU with the material shipped to the inventory package and labeled shipped into the next station on the circuit with if needed with the following procedures apply. Inventory all items should be shipped with the pack items subsequently numbered boxes annotated with the inventory show with the box number in which each item shipped and shipping dates. Enclose one copy of the inventory box number 1. Forward one copy of the inventory by letter to the receiving station. Retain one copy of the inventory section of the department files when local to destruction of the radio material. The authorized inventory record with the defeat for both sides. Turn the records to the military, the Department of Defense, property with the disposal office of the team and the turn in certificate. If it is not practical to dispose of the record, the prepared with the certificate of destruction has been signed by the representative of the outlet performing the destruction of the OIC or section manager, station manager for the witness of the disposal. Copy of the turn-in certificate of destruction along with a copy of the inventory will be forwarded with the Army Foreign Ministry Radio Television Services BC. Retain copies of the documentation within 1 calendar year of the Department of Defense 51-2020R. Appendix F, govern the destruction record materials. The Army Force Radio Television Services authorized local destruction of FM stereo tapes. They will be degaussed, erased, and used for other purposes within the station. Otherwise, destruction process of the same match for the record of the Army Force Radio Television Service of the BC authorized local destruction of the other type of radio materials. Special instructions will be provided to if the radio program is lost, damage of the destroyed due to the cause of the other than normal wear and tear. Report a survey will be prepared. Upon approval, the findings will be reported to the Armed Forces Radio Television Service of the BC. Count-on station. Count-on stations are not part of the Army Force Radio Television Service System. Therefore, they are authorized only new with the Entertainment Command Information programs produced for the U.S. Army Command Information Unit. Programs furnished within this agency do not have to be returned. They are to be disposed locally via the property disposal of the other control procedures. Soldiers, radio, and television programming may be requested. Commercial records and tapes are usually budgeted with the purchase locally. Maintenance. The chief of the radio announcer must regularly check with the operability of the radio control radio equipment to conduct with the daily check with the control of the room and then keep the maintenance log with the announcement and the annotate with the program problem occurs. Ensure the information passed along with a section of the supervisor of the studio, mainly if the technician in accordance with the local standard operation procedure. Keep your staff and announcers informed of equipment status and avoid unexpected problems during the air shift of the production times. Supplies. Broadcast supplies such as cotton swabs, razor blades, tape, cartridges, reel-to-reel tape, special radio operation forms. Other items must be kept in check with the agent responsible to the chief of the radio announcer ensure the announcers have the tools to do their job. The bottom line, any successful broadcast or operation to be thoroughly knowledgeable of the radio operation personnel, over the work, for knowing the weakness, strong points, use their advantage, ensure that whenever you assign with an announcer program has also the program aids and necessary to perform the task. Make sure all jingles, motion, music, propellants are used up to date. Check with the emergency film material that is available to the studio in accordance with local standard operation procedure. Follow local standard operation procedure, posting an alert, emergency announcing material within the studio. Study the regulations, standard operation procedure. Always provide an answer for the question. The broadcasters stay on the top of everything within the radio domain. Practice exercise 1. Answer key number 1. Lesson 2. Establishing, maintaining broadcast standard operation procedure.